Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. I'm just about to fly back to the UK, but to show you how dedicated I am to you, my loyal audience, I'm uploading this episode directly from the airport. And today's guest has some mouth-watering stats around startups and entrepreneurship. And I don't want to reveal too many spoilers ahead of the conversation, but did you know that military vet entrepreneurs are twice as likely to be operating their businesses after 5 years of operation? And as regular listeners will know, and everyone that runs a startup, only 10% actually stick around and go on to succeed. So the question I find myself asking is, why are military vets more likely to stay in business? And did you also know that some of the biggest companies in the US were founded by military veterans, such as Nike, GoDaddy and FedEx, to name but a few? And military vets have historically been successful at starting their own businesses dating back to after World War II, where 50% of veterans went on to own their own businesses. Now, I've set the scene and I wanted to invite Josh Carter, CEO of Patriot Boot Camp, onto the show to tell us more about their mission and their results in the past 6 years that they've managed to achieve. And not only that, how startups and entrepreneurship lifestyle is something that's been around a lot longer than many of us realise. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Portland, Oregon, so we can speak with Josh Carter, CEO of Patriot Boot Camp. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Josh. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Thanks, Neil. I appreciate it. My name's Josh Carter. I am the current CEO of Patriot Boot Camp, a Techstars affiliated nonprofit. We help military veterans and spouses grow and scale their technology startups.
Now, when I first came across Patriot Boot Camp, I was inspired by your mission statement, which I think goes something like, to assemble and activate an inclusive community that advances veterans and military spouses in their mission to become creators, innovators and entrepreneurs, leading the new economy. But can you just tell me a little more about Patriot Boot Camp and the story behind the company?
Yeah, so back in 2012, our founder, Taylor McElmore, discovered that there weren't a whole lot of options for veterans as it related to accelerator programs. Y Combinator, 500 Startups, Techstars, they're all really amazing top-tier programs, but they don't have a specific program catered to this community. Taylor recognized that this was a big gap, even though he's not a veteran himself, and decided to approach Techstars to see what could be done to fill that gap. He met with David Cohen, who's one of the co-founders of Techstars, and Techstars said, this is a great idea. I think we would love to support something like this. We don't have a tremendous amount of scale, but whatever we can do to support, we'll happily support. What that conversation spawned was originally just a one-time event in DC, but what came out of that event in DC was this real niche need to provide fundamental programming for military spouses and veterans as it relates to what they can be doing to grow their startups in a compelling way. So as a result, since 2012, we've done 12 of these programs. We have the 13th program coming in September. It's really modeled after the entire Techstars 3-month program, but instead of 3 months, we compress that down to 3 days. So as you can imagine, it's just a fire hose of information that we provide to these founders. We provide mentor meetings. They get to meet with at least 8 mentors during a 2-day span. And these are mentors that have done some really amazing things in the marketplace in their own journey. We do panel discussions, workshops, fireside chats, you name it. We do it in that 3-day span. That all culminates with a sort of a pitch competition, if you will. They all get up, they take what they've learned throughout the weekend, they stand up and they do a 2-minute pitch about their business. There's no real quote unquote prize to it other than bragging rights, of course, which military folks love. But we spend a lot of time really cultivating and setting them up for the next step, whatever that may be in their life cycle.
And I think it's important to highlight that startup and entrepreneurial life is not something new or something that's confined to this digital era that we're living in right now. And some of the biggest companies in the US were founded by military vets, such as Nike, GoDaddy and FedEx, to name just a few. And vets have historically been successful at starting their own businesses, dating back to World War II, where I believe 50% of veterans owned businesses. I mean, is that something that you can expand on?
Yeah, it's funny. One of our biggest benefactors, USAA, same thing. They found a gap where there were a bunch of military officers that couldn't get insurance. So they just started an insurance company themselves. It started with 25 military officers. And I think that's what makes veterans so compelling when it comes to being an entrepreneur. They just find problems and they solve them. I think the interesting stat now is that, as you touched on, many veterans, as they transitioned out after World War II, they created a business, whether that was a restaurant or a cleaning business or what have you. There was a substantial amount that created business. That number has dwindled substantially, and it's only 4.5% of transitioning military vets even create a business now. But more than a quarter want to. And I think a lot of that is compounded by the fact that they don't have a network when they transition out. They've been out, building their military background, so they don't have a very robust network when they get out of the military. The other could be that, right now the job market's really great in the U.S. So I think that could be a compelling factor as well. So I think there's a number of things that contribute to the low number of transitioning military vets that are starting businesses. But a lot of them take an unorthodox path as well. For example, my path was very similar to that, where I transitioned out of the military. I went and got a job. I had a career for a long time. And then at some point I decided that I didn't want to work for anybody anymore. I just wanted to create a business. So I went out and created a startup that we took through Techstars. And then when my business transitioned over, I transitioned to leading Patriot Boot Camp. But there's a lot of people in a very similar role where they'll go out into the workforce, they'll sort of hone their career skills, and then they'll discover some niche problem and go out there and solve it.
Now, I also read a great stat recently that military vet entrepreneurs are twice as likely to be operating their business after 5 years of operation. And I do interview a lot of startups on this show, and I know there's going to be a lot of founders listening to us now. And many people that run their own startup will know that only 10% actually stick around and go on to succeed traditionally. So why do you think it is that military vets are more likely to stay in business?
I think it's just the things that they've learned in the military involve things like being agile, or when they run into a problem, they don't panic, and they're very conservative and thoughtful and strategic. And all of these are great attributes that founders need to grow and scale their businesses. I think one of the things that is really interesting about things like the market in the Silicon Valley, for example, and it's starting to transition a little bit, but the idea was more build fast, try to get to scale as quickly as possible. And I think what makes veteran founders, so different is that they're willing to move fast, but they want to be strategic about it. They want to be thoughtful. They want to set up their chess pieces to make sure that they're not setting them up for failure. And I think that's the difference, is that they can really understand their movements in a more compelling way, whereas in other markets like the Silicon Valley or non-veteran or non-military spouse founders, they're just going out there to put the foot on the gas as hard as they can, and if they fail, so be it. They'll go to the next one. Founders really take failure to heart, and it's one of the things that we've really spent a lot of time talking about. Military founders take failure much differently than non-veteran founders. It hits them hard. They don't want to be seen as letting anybody down, and especially when a founder takes money from either friends or family or people they know, it hits them even harder. And I think that's one of the reasons that veteran founders are much more of a viable investment, because they have a sense of purpose, they have a sense of community, they go out and they look for a problem to solve, and they're thoughtful about it, not just of their business, but ancillary things around them.
So despite these inspiring statistics, vet entrepreneurship, like you said a few moments ago, has been on a steady decline over the years, now with, I think, 5.6% of veteran-owned businesses in the US. So what are the biggest hurdles that vets are facing today?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think we're still trying to figure that out. NAVSO, which is the National Association for Veteran Service Organization, has partnered with Purdue to answer that very question. And right now, we don't know if is it resources or is it funding or is it both? And I think that study is really going to answer that question. But I think to your question, one of the things that I was challenged with was, even though I came from the startup community, I was an early employee at Twilio, I didn't have a tremendous amount of people behind me that I could just go to and find money or resources. And when I was introduced to Patriot Boot Camp in 2014, it was an eye-opening experience in that I felt like I was part of a community from the moment I walked in the door. So Patriot Boot Camp is really filling that void in that we provide not only resources, but people that are actively investing in their community. People like Brandon Shelton at TFX Capital. They are actively pursuing veteran and military spouse founders in a way that not many others are out there. And there are others, Craig Cummings, Doug McCormick, those are very veteran-friendly investors, and more are starting to turn that corner as investors look to find a way to narrow their risk. And as you stated before, veterans are a great place to look for to de-risk your investments. And so I think there's a long road ahead for veterans, but we're starting to turn the corner. People realizing that veterans are a viable investment, they're a smart investment, they're a strategic investment, and time will tell to see what that does to the statistics, if that sways it one way or another.
Now, one of the reasons that I invited you on the show today was after reading how Patriot Boot Camp is on a mission to turn those numbers around by empowering veterans to use the skills attained from operating in high-stress, demanding environments and then help them translate that into successful business ideas of their own. And again, another phenomenal stat is that PBC has helped over 750 entrepreneurs start successful businesses with, I think, raising 70 million in capital and creating over 1,300 jobs during its 6 years of operation. So can you tell me more about that? Because it's an incredible story that I really think needs to be told and shared.
Yeah, it's incredible. When I went through the first Patriot Boot Camp in Madison, Wisconsin in 2014, and as I said, when I walked through the door, it was like I felt like I was home. I was with my family. And there's things that happen to an entrepreneur when they meet another entrepreneur. There's these walls that immediately break down because they're going through something similar to what you're going through. Imagine those walls that come down when you meet a fellow veteran who's also an entrepreneur. Those walls immediately come down. You want to be helpful, and there's a great sense of community. And I think that's what makes Patriot Boot Camp so unique, is that we provide this not only this program, but this community that is just collaborative and innovative and just we want to see everybody succeed, and we'll do everything we possibly can to do that. What we've been challenged with in the past is we've always had this one program, and as a result, we've had every stage of startup come through, whether that is somebody with just an inkling of an idea, or even on the other side of the spectrum, they have a moderate amount of startup revenue coming through and they're ready for an accelerator. And so we've started to decouple that a bit. We've started to be more thoughtful and silo our training or programming a bit. So we created this program called Vet Hacks. And Vet Hacks is a 48-hour builder event that enables us to offload those early stage idea founders into a more appropriate space. So now when somebody comes to Patriot Boot Camp with an idea, we can take them to this 48-hour builder event. They can spend that weekend building it to see if that idea has merit. And then once they've figured out how to really define what the problem is, they can then take it to Patriot Boot Camp, our core program, to really get the most out of that program. And so it enables us to focus this program in a staged way. And so that further part of the spectrum where there's people with revenue, we're working on figuring out how we resolve that. And that could be a growth program. It could be a full 3-month accelerator. We just don't know. But we're starting to figure out that once we provide this more focused program, we can provide much more value to the founders that come through our ecosystem.
Now, none of this happened overnight, of course, and I'm quickly learning that every startup has an overnight success story that of around 10 years. But can you tell me more about your journey that took you onto ABC's Shark Tank, acceptance to top venture accelerators like Techstars and Y Combinator, and several successful company acquisitions along the way too?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's all our founders. I mean, we would love to take all the credit in the world for this, but our founders come in with great ideas, and we are just giving them more tools to use in their tool belt. So, it's been such a pleasure and such an honor to serve these amazing and incredible, innovative founders. But we just provide the tools that help them grow. We don't help them with the ideas, other than helping them sort of hone out who their customers are. So it's been a great journey. People like Jen Pilcher from Military One Click, Bart Lamont from Autopilot, Robin Autopilot. I mean, we have these amazing founders that have these great stories. We've had 6 acquisitions, companies that have come through our program and then gone and sold their companies. And a lot of them will come back and say Patriot Boot Camp was the catalyst that helped them drive growth to their companies. And we're just doing what we can to be a part of that story. And 3 days is a short amount of time to do that, but it's amazing the impact that those 3 days have. And so as we look to grow the organization, and we look to find ways to be more valuable, it's just serving our founders to enable their growth even faster.
I always say that tech works best when it brings people together at the end of every podcast, and you guys are making an incredible difference in using technology to empower people. But if there is anyone listening to us now, anywhere in the world, that has an idea or wants to solve a problem and doesn't know where to start, what is the best piece of advice that you can offer?
Oh man, there's so many. There are a lot of great veteran service organizations helping people at those really early stages. We love to help early stage founders, but there are great organizations doing a lot to help them figure out what kind of entity they should form, what a partnership agreement looks like. Organizations like Bunker Labs, Operation Code, IVMF, EBV, these are all, military loves their acronyms, but these are all really great organizations that work collaboratively with Patriot Boot Camp. It was the reason we created VetHacks in the first place, was we wanted to find a way to showcase that there's this workflow that exists for veteran founders to go through. So if Operation Code is the first step where they're teaching people how to code, then Bunker Labs is the next step where they're teaching people what kind of entity to form. And they have a great partnership with WeWork, called Veterans in Residence, that enables that growth to even to start even further. So Patriot Boot Camp works in this ecosystem, but a bit further downstream. And founders that are thinking about what they want to do with their business would be served well to figure out how they fit in that ecosystem as well. And look, I say over and over again, any business is a hypothesis until someone pays for it. So that's the other thing that I always impress on founders is work on that idea, find somebody that will be willing to pay for it, and you'll have such an easier time figuring out how you grow your business even further. It was certainly a misstep on my own journey, and one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about what I do at Patriot Boot Camp, because I can take my own learnings and my own journey and impart that wisdom on our founders that are just starting their own journey.
So what's next for Patriot Boot Camp? Is there anything else that you can share with us about the future of what you've set out to achieve here?
Oh, man. Yeah, well, I mean, I think the next step for us is really we've been trying to figure out what we can do to put real money to work to these founders. I think we've always thought about what we could be doing to either invest our own money into the founders or create a program that includes investment. So we're working on trying to figure out what we can do to decouple this one program even further to provide focused and deliberate programming. VetHacks is a great first step of that. Patriot Boot Camp will continue to grow and thrive. We'll do at least 3 programs for 2019, if not 4. We'll look to create an accelerator/growth program sometime in 2019 as well. So, I think 5 years down the road, I believe that Patriot Boot Camp will be seen as the premier tech accelerator program for veteran and military spouse founders.
Fantastic. Before I do let you go, could I ask that you remind the listeners of where they can find out more information about you guys, or maybe contact a member of your team, or want to carry on the conversation that we started today?
Yeah, absolutely. PatriotBootCamp.org is the website, and that has all the information. We have applications are sort of ongoing. People can apply to attend the next Patriot Boot Camp, which is at the end of September in Denver, Colorado. And I'm really excited about that one. We're doing something we haven't done before where we're partnering with Denver Startup Week. So it'll be a tremendous event. We're really excited about that partnership. But all the information's on patriotbootcamp.org. If people would like to reach out to me directly, they absolutely can. It's just simply Carter, Carter, at patriotbootcamp.org.
Excellent. Well, a huge thanks for coming on and sharing your story with me today. I love the fact how you're creating this community that's advancing veterans and military spouses in their mission to become creators, innovators and entrepreneurs, leading to a new digital economy. I think it's fantastic. So a big thank you for coming on today.
Neil, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And if there's anything else I can share, please let me know.
There were so many big stats on this episode. Some of the biggest companies in the US were founded by military veterans. Like I said at the beginning of the show, Nike, GoDaddy and FedEx, to name but a few. But it's so important to remember that vet entrepreneurship has been on the steady decline over the years. It was great to hear about entrepreneurial support that military veterans are facing today when starting their own business. And that includes a network of support and access to funding. But do you have any insights that you can add to today's conversation? As always, I invite you to join the conversation, and you can do that by simply emailing me at techblogwriter@outlook.com or send me a quick tweet at Neil C. Hughes. But I've got a plane to catch now. Speaking of which, isn't every aspect of the airport experience, from check-in, security and boarding a plane and getting your luggage, isn't all that crying out for disruption? Many of these areas have not changed in 20, 30 years. So feel free to let me know your experiences in airports this summer and how you think tech can improve the traveller's experience. I will speak to you all tomorrow back in the UK. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.